Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Off the Cuff with Cliff. Our show, never know where it's going to go. We ask you to pay attention and watch to the end because we don't know where it's going to go. Today we're having a pre-recorded show. Don't be discouraged because we don't edit it. We don't change anything. And this is totally unscripted. So Max here is let's see, what can I call Max? I'm going to call Max a technology geek. Every
I'll
time
take it.
You'll take it? Every time we talk, we end up talking about technology, and we often agree to disagree, but I'm always right. So, Max, tell me about technology. How'd you get so involved, and what do you do?
Well, I do, as far as technology is concerned, I'll say I'll do a little bit of everything.
Okay.
I've had my foot in the door since early high school because I was helping my dad do a watermark, a video for something.
Okay.
So that was kind of my entry point to learning how to deal with videos, and then that opened the door to graphic design and other things.
Okay. So that type of stuff, that's all considered technology. What about video games and things like that?
Well, I personally, love playing video games.
Okay.
All my friends do. I play with them.
Okay. What's your favorite game?
That's actually a really good question. I'll have to go with fun classic Minecraft.
Okay, I don't know what that is, but I do know a lot of people do it. Is that one of the ones where you put the helmet on and you're shooting people?
No, it's actually, although there is the VR version of Minecraft.
What does VR mean?
Virtual reality.
So that's the one where you put the head on
that's when
and
you
you
have
think
the
you're walking
helmets.
around?
Yep.
Have you ever done that?
I have not. It's something I probably want to try, so because it looks cool, but I'm a little bit scared because I have a fear of heights in general.
Okay.
So not having like control of what I'm seeing is just a little weird for me.
I get it. So what's your favorite game?
Minecraft.
And what's the purpose of Minecraft?
It is an open world creation game. You essentially play as this character in an endless world, and I mean truly endless. You could walk in one direction for days, real life days, and never hit the end.
Okay,
but you could just build whatever you want.
So now a lot of games today are not like consoles and stuff like they used to be.
No.
So a lot of these games are played online, and you can play with teams. You can play with people in other areas of the world.
Correct.
That's just amazing. I'm going to go off the cuff for a second. When I was a kid, the first game that they came out with was a game called Pong. I don't know if you ever heard of it. You ever hear Pong?
I've heard of Pong.
So all Pong was this ball that bounced back and forth, and you had a panel, and you had to move it up, and you moved it down, and you did this, and you did that. And that was an exciting game back then. And then you had Atari, right, which had all of these cartridges, but it didn't have the animation effects like it has today.
No.
And, there was a thing called Intellivision. So, I always had to get the most expensive, and I had Intellivision, but it doesn't compare to anything like it is today. Have you ever played any of those old games?
I will say I have played the original Pong on computers, like in elementary school kind of thing.
Okay.
But I will say that I recently played the advanced version of Pong. I was in an arcade in Edison, and they had this tabletop setup. It was Pong. Like, it had the original artwork for Pong, but it was 4 players.
Okay.
And it was played on a screen that was, like, put between the 4 players.
This was where?
In Supercharged in Edison.
I got to give it a try. I love Pong.
It was 4 players. So I had a bunch of friends because we were there for a bachelor party.
You have friends?
I do have friends.
Okay.
I'm very proud of my friends. And it was played with this dial.
Wait a minute. Hold it back up. You said you were there for what reason?
Bachelor party.
Okay. So I'm going to go off the cuff now.
All right.
I don't know about you and bachelor parties, but when I went to bachelor parties when I was younger, we never went to a place that played games.
Yeah.
Is that something new?
I will say it's unique to my friend group.
Okay.
We're not big on the whole party aspect.
Did you have a cake where a girl jumped out of it?
No.
Nothing like that?
Nothing like that.
Okay.
It was just a couple friends having fun with some games.
Okay. And this is a bar, so you were drinking and playing, or?
We drank afterwards.
Okay.
All right. I think there was options there, but we didn't go for it.
Okay. So back to technology. So how does that game work? 4 people are playing.
There's 4 people around the board, and there was a dial, and it was sort of, I would say, lifelike game in the sense that there was a virtual ball, but there was the moving block, as it's called, that was based on sort of like the way air hockey technology.
How did you control? What did you do?
There was just one simple dial. You turned, went to the left, turned to the right. The brick went to the right, and you control the ball, and you're trying to get out the other 3 players.
So is that sort of like that game? What's that game where you push something down and you try to knock the other person's thing off it?
I know what you're talking about. Don't know what it's called. Sort of, but it's Pong.
Okay, so technology today has changed quite a bit because the games are a lot different, right? So
Yes.
because the games are different, do you think games influence people's thoughts? Do you think games can affect mental health?
It's a very that's a very philosophical question, Cliff,
Okay,
and I'm happy you brought it up. But at the same time, I don't think so.
okay,
Because there's people who play, the hardcore shooters who I know who are the nicest people on earth, and there's people who play weird little children's game who are kind of assholes.
okay,
I I don't think it changes
okay.
anything. I think your attitude towards something affects things.
Well, yeah. Well, so my thing is, my sons were growing up, and they had all these games, and they had these shooting games and stuff. I was dead set against it because in my mind, you're influencing someone that's very, very young. And I granted, when I was growing up and I had children, we didn't have everyone had an iPhone and stuff like that. So anytime they were doing something, I thought it was impacting their thought process. Now, does it affect mental health? I don't know, but I'm from the old school, and I say those types of games definitely have some sort of influence in some people's lives.
Maybe that young for that extreme step. If it's extreme at a young age, maybe there's definitely probably something. But I
Okay.
think once you hit like early teens, I don't think it affects as much.
Okay, so we talked about video games and technology. What other technologies are you into?
Well, I deal with computers,
Okay.
as and apps as far as like graphic design and
Well,
other
let's
things
talk
are
about apps.
concerned.
Okay, so apps over time, right? So years ago, you had to have a program to do everything, right?
Yeah,
Now everything's an app.
everything's an app.
Everything's an app, and everything's online. And now they have everything going to the cloud. Is going to the cloud with everything a good thing or a bad thing?
I'm a little annoyed by it,
Okay.
simply because it's just there was no need for many things. Like I deal with images on Photoshop, and they went to cloud based.
Don't
I know,
mention a
I know.
name. I don't get paid. By the way, Photoshop. Who owns Photoshop?
Adobe.
Adobe. I'm going to send you an invoice. Okay, go ahead.
When,
He did not say Photoshop.
yeah, I didn't say it. When my favorite photo editing went CC, I gained nothing for it. I don't need my stuff on the cloud like that. I had no reason for it.
But don't you
Um,
think a lot of things that we have is forcing you to go to the cloud, and then you got the cloud telling you use this much, now you got to pay this much, now you got to pay this much. I mean, what does it mean? Is in the cloud? What does that mean?
it just means it is being hosted somewhere on that company's servers, so they now have all your info, and hopefully you can access it later, and pray that they don't lose it.
So let's talk about technology with products, right? So products, and I'm not going to name the computer, okay, but there's a certain brand out there that every time it upgrades the type of plug you need to plug into it.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Okay, and then they got these speed chargers and fast chargers, but it keeps changing. And to me, that's just a way of forcing somebody to spend more money on their product, right?
Completely agree.
And that same company, which I shall remain nameless, also I think got sued by one of the countries because what they were doing is they were selling the product without the plug, the source
Correct.
for the electric.
Yep.
So then they got sued and said, well, you can't sell them something without being able to use it. And so that sort of makes sense to me. But I think when companies do that, that's kind of a little bit unfair. What do you think?
No, that was completely out of line by them. I completely agree. No fruit based company should have that kind of business practice.
Correct. And so that's out there as well. So let's talk about technology with watches.
Okay.
Do you know anything about watches? And
I am familiar with some watches. I owned a while back. I owned like a very simple one, just for like tracked steps,
Sure.
step goals, that kind of thing. I know they've come a long way since then.
So yeah, so I have an electronic watch, and my daughter has an electronic watch, and she talked me into it. She actually talked me into it because her watch was more for sports and stuff like that, and the one that she suggested to me was able to download all these apps for health. And so I never thought of it, but I'm definitely paying more attention to my steps and what I do and the time
Yeah.
standing. And it reminds me I need to get up and stand and need to do that. I'm more aware of that. And so I guess there's a concept out there called, and I didn't know it was called this, but it made perfect sense. Her boyfriend, we went out to dinner the other day, and he asked me, he says, are you more active? And I said, definitely. And why is that? Because I keep looking at my watch to see if I met my goals, and I
Yeah.
keep changing my goals. And he said to me, and this makes sense. I don't know if this is a word, but he said, I'm gamified, right? because I'm looking at that piece of technology, and that's making me do something or inspiring me to do something that I would not have done.
Yeah.
And it's gamified. It'll go back to what we talked about earlier with all the different types of video games and stuff like that. So that's interesting.
There's actually, to go off the cuff, in animation like anime and other stories, that's actually a big concept that people are popular with now because technology is so prevalent in our world.
Right.
There are stories that people have written, people enjoy, of characters whose world changed because they became gamified. They see their
Is
life.
gamified a word?
I would say, yeah. I mean, I think it's easy enough. There's a whole Urban Dictionary for words that people use that are not Oxford approved, but they're still usable. I think gamified could be a word.
What about car technology?
I'm familiar that it exists. I'm not a big car guy myself, though.
Okay, so I think new cars make it very, very dangerous, and I'll tell you why. I use my wife's car. She's got a newer car, and it's got all of this electronics in it, right? So you look in the mirror, and it's got a red dot or a green dot or whatever car you have, and that tells you this is a car in your blind space, which is good. I think that's safe.
Useful.
And then if you put your directional on that you're going to go in that space, all of a sudden the car starts shaking and stuff, so you don't make that turn, right? It's a warning. So I drove her car for 2 or 3 days in a row, and I ended up driving with my own car, and my own car didn't have that technology. And I was driving down the highway. I looked in my mirror, didn't see the car in the blind spot, put my directional on and started pulling over. The guy screeches, blows on his horn, and he had every right. He was so pissed off at me, and he had every right to be. But what happened was, again, I got used to that technology very, very easily. And then you have GPSs in cars. I don't go anywhere without a GPS because I'm afraid, hey, they changed the road or a route or something. I mean, I think technology has its good parts and its bad parts, but all cars are like that. I spoke to somebody the other day that just got a brand new car, and he hates it. He hates it to the extent that when he's going outside a lane, it beeps or something and tells him he needs to straighten out.
Oh, I see.
He hates it. Same thing with my wife's car. If I'm slowing down and I'm not slowing down fast enough, the car slows down for me. It's like, I'm not really comfortable with that. Now, I'm sure if that's all I knew, it would be different, right?
Yeah, I think that's kind of their whole new, because they're trying to go into the whole smart car route where people don't have to drive anymore. And I feel like they're doing the transition in ways that's making it weird for people.
Right.
I feel like they had done sort of a leap. It might have been easier for people to digest, but as it is, people are like getting used to or not used to new systems, and it's kind of putting them off for the idea of everything taking over like that. But I agree. It's definitely, there's a weird learning curve for how things like that work now.
It is, and you got to get comfortable using it. But to me, I think a lot of the technology that's taking place and where it's going is actually, to me, a little bit dangerous. But I'm one of whatever millions, billions of people out there. But my feeling is, and I came up in an era where I remember telephones going off the cuff. Now I'm going to show my age a little bit, where there were party lines, right?
Yeah.
So a party line was, there were 3 or 4 families tied into this one thing. You all had the same phone number.
Okay.
And if you went to make a phone call and somebody else was on that phone, you had to wait till they got off the phone. So we went from that to a phone, our own phone line, and then over time we had all these different systems where you paid a certain rate for local calls, certain rate for out of calls, and then they came up with all these programs where family circle, and it was this price, that price. And then I remember I had my first car phone, and that was a really big thing in the late 80s. You paid a lot of money for it. And when you think about it today, and I had a car phone, when you think about it today, it made no freaking sense, because you paid like $3 a minute for it. And back then, that's probably worth $10 a minute now. And it was only good if you were in the car. It's not like a cell phone you're walking around with now. You had the antenna, which now, if somebody was going to steal it or whatever. But it was one of those things that was nice to have, but you never used it. And then I also had one of the first mobile or portable phones, which was this battery like about this big that had maybe 20 or 25 minutes worth of capacity with electricity.
Really?
And you walked around with it, and it was like something like Lost in Space, where you picked up the phone and you talked to people. And that was there for a while. Yeah. So and then you went from that to where we are today with phones, where you could talk the phone on your wrist.
Yeah.
It's totally different. The world has changed so quickly when it comes to that, and I think that's happening in a lot of things, right?
to add to it, to go off the cuff a little, and to go back to video games a little bit, there's the systems, the consoles that people call them, and then there's the PC gaming, and now handheld technology is reaching a whole new domain. There are like several handheld items right now that are essentially just mini computers that you can play games. Phones even are adding games that were used to be console only. Now your phones can run them. Like technology is compacting very quickly.
Well, it's compacting. And what about they just come out with a new product or a new version of a product? They just put it on the market for X number of dollars, and then they're advertising the next version that's coming out a year from now.
Yeah.
So do you buy it then, or do you wait until the next version comes out?
That's up to people. I know some people who. There's a lot of people who like to be up to date. They like, the name recognition of having product that's brand new, saying, "Oh, I got the newest stuff." There will always be people like that, and unfortunately, I think while there's people like that, companies will do that, practice of announcing one immediately after. But there's people who I know usually wait for. The problem nowadays, I will say, is when companies release something, already planning the next one, the release will be out of touch, kind of with bugs, issues that a lot of things have. And so a lot of people won't buy the new version simply because of those problems. Right. And they'll wait for it to be updated, for price to drop, for it to be a reasonable actual purchase.
Well, that's the way it used to be, too. You never bought the first year of something because they knew they had a year to work out the bugs. Now it's like, this comes out, and this one's ready to come out now. And the difference is the size or the color or the whatever. It's like, it could be so minuscule, but it's still out there. Yep. It's still out there, right? So let's go off the cuff for a second. What's your favorite food?
I'm a big fan of pizza.
Pizza.
I love pizza.
Pizza is an interesting subject. So pizza is one of those things. Now, what is the saying? If you can figure out why you have to put something round in a square box, but you eat it in a triangle, right? Isn't that something? So I had worked for a national restaurant chain. I was a vice president for a pizza chain. And do you know the secret of pizza?
Which secret?
Do you know what makes a pizza hot? What keeps a pizza hot?
No.
Okay, so think about it. So what a pizza is, the thing that actually keeps it hot is the sauce.
Okay.
Because the bread is an insulator and the melted cheese is an insulator. So a good pizza, if you don't have sauce on a pizza or a little bit of pizza, and they make pizzas with salads on it now, for crying out loud. But the sauce is what keeps it hot, because the sauce is the conductor of electricity. Do you like thin sliced pizza, thick sliced pizza, upside down pizza?
I like the normal thicker side. I like the thicker slice.
You like the thicker slice?
Yeah.
And what type of toppings do you like?
I'm a pepperoni and cheese kind of guy.
Pepperoni and cheese type of guy. And pizza is one of those things that, depending on where you go, pizza is different in every part of the country, depending on the water, depending on the tomatoes, depending on all that stuff. But I love pizza, as you can tell from my girl's figure. I love eating pizza. We're running out of time. What do you actually do for a living?
I'm actually an owner of my own little company.
Okay.
Brand-Biz Video. I help businesses with social media marketing, graphic design, anything they need.
We're going to get you on another edition of this. We're going to get you into our business spotlight somewhere down in the future. So anything you'd like to add? No, there's not. Okay. No. Thank you very much, Max. It's been a pleasure.
You too.